Hello guys, it's Alex here again. In the previous course, we introduced you to Photoshop and went further to show you the various tools in Photoshop and what they are used for. In this course, we'll be going further to use some of these tools we mentioned in the previous course to create a very simple design. This is to help us get familiar with some of these tools and understand how they work. And there's no better way to understand how a thing works than by actually using them. So let's get started. In the previous course, we created an A5 sized document or artboard, which is what we'll be using in this course to actually create our simple design. If you don't know how we got to this point or how we're able to create this document or artboard, you can go back to the previous video and go through it. Before we start designing anything, we need to first of all go to our workspace and make some changes to it. Our workspace is in graphics and web, so the tools we have here are the tools that Photoshop feels we most likely need for graphics design. We'll be going out of there. We'll be using essentials instead. Yeah, I believe you must have done that. We'll be working with an image, and the first thing we will do is to import the image. All right, so there are two ways we can do that. Either we click on this file and move to open, click on open, and this is the image you want to use, and we'll have to click on the image and hit open. Once we do that, Photoshop opens up the image we have chosen. As you just noticed, the image is in a different artboard altogether. So we can actually hold down our left button on the mouse and drag the image to the document we're actually working on, which is this A5 document. And once we get there, we release the button on the mouse and you can see our image is already imported to our document or our artboard which we are designing with. So let me delete that. And there's another option we have to import images to our document is we can actually go directly to the folder where we have the image, which is here, and we can either we double click to drag, or we can just left click, hold down, and drag the image to Photoshop. When we get to the particular document of Photoshop we are designing on, we release our mouse or release the button, we release the left button on the mouse, and Photoshop instantly loads up our image. So we now have the image we want to use, and as you can see, the image is quite small, and I would like to enlarge this image. And to do that, one way to do that is to go to the top here. You can see here, show transform controls, and check the box. Once you check this box, what it does is to bring transform controls around objects or elements in Photoshop. And the transform controls are these tiny dots you're seeing around this image. With these tiny dots, if you noticed, as we hover our mouse or the cursor, as we hover on the dots, you can see the dot changes to arrows. So, and that means you can actually, when you hold down to drag, you can actually make this image bigger or make it smaller. Either of the ways, at least you get the point. And once you expand the image to get the size you want, you have to hit the enter button on your keyboard. And if you notice here, the tool we have been using to move the images around is our move tool, which is at the top left, which is the topmost of the tools. The first tool here is the move tool, and the shortcut is letter V. on the keyboard. That is the tool we have been using to, move our image and to make our image bigger or smaller. So this alone shows you how we use the move tool, or how the move tool works. So we keep expanding the image more until we get what we want. And if you also noticed, we have almost reached the edge of our workspace, and we can't go further to, I want to expand this image further, but I can't go further because I've reached the edge of my artboard. I've reached the end of my workspace because I've expanded this image so much that most of the transform controls are now hidden, and I'm finding it difficult to expand it further because I'm only seeing one here, but I need the one at the top here and the one at the bottom, but I can't see them because they are hidden. To sort that out, I need to make this document smaller so that I can see the hidden part of the transform controls on the image. So to do that, I have to hold down my control and the minus button. My control on Windows computer, or if you're using a Mac, you can hold down on your command and hit the minus button or the minus key. The minus key is the button that is right after the number 0 on the keyboard, and then I hit my minus button or minus key. So that instantly, as you can see, it makes my document smaller for the hidden transform controls to be visible. And with that, I can keep expanding my image until I am satisfied. All right. So this is actually what I want. So I'll hit the enter key on my keyboard. Right now our document is smaller because I was trying to get to the transform controls that were hidden. Now to make them bigger, I need to still hold down my control or command, my control on a Windows laptop or command on an Apple laptop, then hit the plus key. This instantly zooms in into our artboard or document. So right here I am satisfied. So our image has been placed exactly the way we want it to be placed. All right. So far we've been just making use of the move tool to move the image around and resize the image. So the next thing we have to do at this point is to add some text to our simple design. And to do that, we have to move to the type tool, which is this. So the horizontal type tool, we'll have to click on it. Then instantly, immediately we click on it. If you look at the top here, Photoshop instantly brings out the name of the font we will be typing on and the size of the font and the alignment of the font. So let's type some text. Let's type feel the music. I know you're not seeing what I'm typing because my default size of the text here is so small, which is 0.68. It's so small. It's so small. That's why you cannot see it. But then I'll just have to hit the move tool because I want to expand the text. I want to drag and expand the text. So it's either I come over here and type in the size I want, or I just hit the move tool. Then you see, as I hover on the text, you can see that my cursor has changed to the arrows that is showing the transform controls. So I can now drag and expand my text, and now you can see my text clearly. The color of the text is green, and that is not what we want for the color of our text. Now let's choose or decide what color we'll give to our text. To do that, we have to go to Windows here, click on it, and go to Properties. This gives us access to the properties of the text, where we can change any of them, which includes the color, size, alignment, etc. We change them to whatever we want. So, and here we are, and this is the window, the property window. So to bring out the properties of our text, we just have to click on it. And here we are. See the color, see the alignment. Here is showing that it's on left alignment, and see the several other properties of our text. So first of all, let's try to choose the color. Now, to choose the color we'll use for our text, there are two ways we can do that. Number one, we can use our understanding of color theory to decide what color we'll use for the text. Or sometimes the client tells you the colors he or she wants for the design, either by telling you either verbally, or the color is contained in what we call brand guide or design brief that they present to you before you start designing. So to change the color, we have to click on this little colored rectangle here. So once we click on it, Photoshop gives us access to the color picker. So as you can see here, once we double click and drag, we have access to so many colors in Photoshop. So since this is not a real project and no client has given us a brand guide that guides us and tells us the color we'll use for this design, we'll be choosing our color by our understanding of color theory. And how we can do that is by looking at this lady here. We can look at her body. She's already wearing a cloth, and the cloth has two colors already. So we'll be picking the color we'll use for this design from the colors on the cloth this lady is wearing. And the way we can do that is by moving our cursor to the part of her body or the part of her clothes where we want to pick colors from. And while you're moving your cursor to her clothes, you can see that the cursor has changed to this eyedropper tool. Eyedropper tool is a tool in Photoshop that we use to sample colors. From the colors on her body, we can see that the only two colors we can use is either black from her shirt, or we use the color of her trousers. So let's use black for now and see how that goes. Feel the music. So If you notice, while we have this fill the music here, it is not aligned in any way. The lady here is aligned to the center. It would also be nice to align the text to the center as well, so that will create some sort of balance in the design. If you notice, as we are moving our text to the middle, you can see some lines that is around our text. And while we keep going, as immediately we got to the center of our artboard, the line instantly appears at the center to show us that we have arrived at the center of our artboard. So now we are at the center. We can now stop moving the text. This Photoshop helps us with alignment when designing. So if your Photoshop is not showing this line, all you have to do is to go to View and scroll down to Show and make sure Smart Guides is highlighted. So those lines that helps us to align our text or align whatever we're moving in Photoshop, they are called smart guides. So make sure I can see this tick by the side. Let me remove the tick, and you can see as I'm moving this, there is no longer, we don't have the smart guides any longer. So it will be difficult for us to align. It will be more difficult for us to align our text or any other object we are moving in Photoshop without the smart guides. So I have to go to View, scroll down to Show, and hit the smart guides. And now if we move, we can see it appears, the lines are red or pink, and they help us with our alignment in Photoshop. So far, while trying to make this simple flyer design, we've been able to see how the move tool works. We have also been able to see how we apply the type tool, apply the horizontal type tool. We have also seen the show transform controls, how they help us to show transform controls and how they help us when we are resizing elements in our designs. We've also seen the color picker, and we've seen how it works, and we've also been able to have access to the property panel and modify the property of our text when we were trying to choose the color. Let's try to play around with the properties of our text. Here, let's try to change our font. Let's try to change the font we are using for the text. So once you click on this little arrow here, it opens you up to so many other fonts in Photoshop. So while you hover on any of the fonts, you can see that our text keep changing to adjust to that font. So we can keep moving, hovering on our text until we decide to settle for any of the fonts that we feel fits. We can decide to settle for any of the fonts that we just like or feel helps us achieve the aim of our design. So let's choose this font, Lucky Fella. Feel the music. So we're just trying to play around with the design. And this little icon here is the properties. All right, so once you click on it, it instantly brings out the properties. Instead of going to the windows and hitting the properties, right, you can just bring it out from here once you click on this icon. So let's go back to the font we were using before, which is, I think this is the font, disclaimer. That disclaimer is the name of the font. Let's also bring it to the center of our design, of our artboard. Yes, now we are at the center. So the font we're using here is disclaimer, and I don't think you have this font. I have this font because I have used it before for a project. And for you to have this font, you just simply have to go to Google and just type in download and download disclaimer font. And once you hit enter, Google brings out so many websites where you can download that font, and let's choose the fontfree.io. So here you can move down and hit the download button. Then the website brings you to this point where you see the properties of the font, the size, the date it was created, and you can then come here and hit the download this button. Once you hit this button, the font immediately downloads. Okay, let's try that. Let's hit the button, the download button. I've done that, so we're actually waiting for the font to download. I have a free download manager that I use for my downloads, and as you can see, it's trying to download the font to my folder where I save all my fonts. Because you might not have the download manager, let's not go through that process. All right, let me cancel it so it downloads directly. So let me choose the folder where to go. Let me choose downloads. So as you can see here, our font has been downloaded. Let me double click on it. It's opening. Now my font has been downloaded. I've opened it up. Then here are the various files of the font. All I have to do is to double click on any of them. Like on this first one, I'll double click on it, and as you can see here, I'm seeing install here. So once I click on install, so Windows is showing me that I have this font already installed. But then you get the point. Once you hit the install button, the font instantly installs to your system. And once you install the first one, you go over to the next one, install it, go over to the rest of them and install all of them. After installing them, you can now go back to your Photoshop, and once you hit on the once you go to the properties of the text and click on the drop down where you have access to all the fonts, you instantly see the disclaimer font somewhere. Or even if you don't see it, you can just type in the name. The name of the font is disclaimer, and once you just type in the name disclaimer, once you just type in the name, the font shows up. All right, so here we are. Now there's one special feature in Photoshop I want to draw your attention to. This feature is called layers. So if you look at the bottom right of our software, you can see here, you can see every element we have applied in this design. Look here, you can see the text, feel the music, see it here. You can see the picture of the image we have been using in this design. Look at it here. Then here you can see the background, the white background. And for you to really, and you can see this, you can see the white background that was here before we started adding every of these elements. So for you to really understand this, for you to really confirm all these things I'm saying, these icons here that looks like an eye, they are called the visible icon. So once we begin to click on them, you see all the elements begin to disappear, leaving the background, only the background for us to see. So while I click on the eye icon, every of the elements began to come out again. So what this means is that this is one of the special features of Photoshop. Every element you add in a design, are stacked on top of each other in the design, in layers, in different layers. So let's try to apply some changes to our design so that we can show how the layers work. So let's go to the rectangle tool and double click or hold down on the tool for more options of the tools in that category to show up. So let's choose the ellipse. Let's choose the ellipse tool. So I want to add a background to this text, feel the music. Like I want it to have some sort of background. And so now for me to apply the ellipse tool, all I have to do is to double tap on my screen, to double tap on my artboard, then drag. So now I have double tapped and drag. So as I drag, I keep expanding the circle then to whatever size I want. Now, if you notice, this is not a perfect circle, and as you can see, it is not a perfect circle, and there is one way we can make it a perfect circle. I'm still holding down to my selection, and the only way we can make this a perfect circle is by using the left hand or the other hand to hold down the shift key. So as you notice, immediately I held the shift key, the ellipse tool instantly turned to a circle. And now while I drag out or drag in, it only increases and decreases its size but maintains a perfect circle. But if I remove my hand from the shift key, you can see the shape. I can decide any of the shape I want. So it's no longer a perfect circle. So, but then what I need here is a perfect circle, a perfect circle. So I'm going to hold down. So while I'm still dragging with my right hand, I'm going to hold down on the shift key. then to drag further. So at this point, I'm satisfied, and I release my right hand, or release the hand I used to drag. So immediately I release my hand, our circle appears. But as I told you, I want this circle. I don't want this circle on top of the whole image. I want it behind our text, which is feel the music. So how am I going to do this? This is where the power of the layer comes in. Every element in Photoshop are placed on different layers, and these layers are stacked on top of each other. So this gives us control over each element and allows us to edit them to our taste. So at this point now, I have the circle on top of the whole element in the image, but I don't want that. So because I want it directly under the field, the music here, I want to place the field, the music on top of this circle. All I have to do right here now is I go over to the layer panel, which is here. Even if the layer panel is not highlighted, you can click on this. So if for any reason yours is maybe it's not, if for any reason, sometimes if you're using Photoshop for the first time, your layer panel might be at the bottom here. Like it can be down like this, or it can be at the bottom here. So all you have to do is, but then you still see these tabs, the layers, channels, and path. So if you just click on the layer panel, you hover on the lines that is separating, on these lines that is above the panel. Then once you hover on it, your cursor turns to arrow. Then you can double click and stretch, just like I'm doing. So once you stretch the panel up, you can see every other layers in the layer panel. So now I can double click on my ellipse layer and move it directly below the fill music layer. Now watch me do that. Now I'm double clicking. You see my cursor has changed to a hand, and now I'm moving it, and directly below the fill the music, if you look closely, you can see a blue stroke. That is showing you that if you release this layer, this is where it's going to appear, and that is what I exactly want. So if I release my hand, see the fill, it quickly goes below fill the music, and also above the image we are using in the design. So let me zoom out of our artboard by holding down my control on my Windows laptop and hit the minus key. If you're using you can use an Apple laptop, you can hold down on your command key and hit the minus key at also. So I'm trying to move the circle so it will get out of the face of the lady in our image. All right, so this is exactly what I want. So this is exactly what I want. Now I need to make the fill the music smaller, and the way I do that is just to tap on the text. Instantly, immediately I tap on the text, instantly the transform controls, which are these dots beside it quickly shows up, and I hover on any of the dots, and immediately my cursor changed to an arrow. I'll just double click and stretch or adjust the size to what I want. So now the size is okay, and I'm now moving the text to the center of. I'm trying to move it to the center of the circle. Now I'm satisfied and I hit enter. So to bring back the artboard to the normal size it was, I'm holding down my control or command, depending on the laptop you're using, then I'm hitting the plus. So now the size is back to normal. Then we're going to change the color of the ellipse tool, the color of the circle. And we can do that by just clicking on the circle, then go to this icon. If you remember, this icon is the property icon. Clicking on the property icon brings out the whole property of the circle, where we can change its color. So here are the colors that are already provided by Photoshop. I can quickly hit any of these colors and change the background, or I can go over here to the color or I can go over here to the color picker, where I have access to all the colors. Then I can now take my mouse, hover on her trouser, on then once I click with the eyedropper tool, the color picker quickly samples the color from her trouser, and yeah, and if you look here, the pink or the baby pink has appeared here. So you can click OK, and instantly our circle, the color of our circle changes to that color, and now the color of our circle has changed. But I don't like the circle. I don't like the color of the circle is too obvious. The circle is too obvious, so I want to make it a little bit faint. And there's a feature in the layer panel I can use to achieve that, and that is the opacity. So once I click on this tiny arrow down, once I click on the layer of, once I select the layer of, so once I click on the circle, or select or make sure that the layer of the circle is selected or highlighted, as we see here, I'll now head over to the opacity, click on this tiny arrow beside the 100%. Then once I click, a slide appears, and I double click and move the slide down while I keep looking at, while I move the slide down, I keep looking at the circle in our design. And as you noticed, our circle is getting fainter and fainter, and that is what I want. Let's also reduce the opacity further. Yeah, this is exactly what I want. Feel the music. So we use the opacity to control how obvious an element is. So this works for any element in design. Let's try that on the image. Once you click on the image, once you select the image by tapping on it on the layer here, or on the layer panel, or directly on the image in the artboard, you can just head to the opacity and move the slider, double click on the slider and move it down. You can see Our image is getting fainter and almost disappearing. Now our image is back because we have returned this slider to back to 100%. So now we've been able to achieve this. We are done with our simple design. What we have to do at this point is to save our design. And to save our design, we just have to head straight to File at the top left here. We have to click on File and go down to Save or Save As. So let's hit the save. So here Photoshop gives us the option to save our file to. So here we have to choose any folder we want to save the file to or our document to. So let me save it to our desktop. Let me save it to our desktop. Okay. Then here we have the name of our design, which is Introduction to Photoshop. Then here we choose the format which we save the document with. So if we save it, we save the document with this Photoshop, this PSD. Then we are saving the file in an editable or raw file, which means with this file format, we can always, anytime we load this file format, we can always edit the image. We can always re-edit the image anytime. So while working on your design, you first of all need to save. You have to make sure you save your design first in this format, which is the Photoshop format. Here, save as type Photoshop. You have to save it here. Saving it here ensures that whatever you design keeps being saved in a raw state. They call this a raw file because it is an editable file format. But then if you choose to save our design in formats such as this JPEG, or we should have to use a PNG, these are non-editable file formats. Once you save your image to these formats, you cannot edit them again. So what you want to do is, first of all, you save this design. You save the design to the Photoshop format, the Photoshop editable format, which then when you click save, all right. So then once you have saved a copy in the editable file format, you can now go back and use save as to save it again in a non-editable file format. Let's use JPEG. So once you do that, it's asking it to bring up a window where it will ask you to confirm or to choose the quality of the image, because you're not trying to see the design now as an image. So here it's asking you to choose the quality of the image you are exporting this design now as. So here we are choosing maximum quality. We click OK. So if we go to our home screen where we save our design to, so if you look here, you can see our design. So this is the one we saved, and let me try opening it. As I double click on it, it's trying to load so that it can open up. Here you can see the non-editable format of our design, which has been saved as an image. So, and it has opened up here. So let's try and understand how the editable format works here. Let's close this design. We have saved it, right? Now let's close them up by clicking on this. So now our Photoshop is empty. We don't have any artboards that are open. Let's head back. Now, after we must have saved this image, after we must have exported this image and sent to our client, and our client wants to make a change, or probably says he does not like this circle that we put behind the field, the music, and wants it out. So the only way we can do that is to head back to our editable or raw file of the design, which is this one here. You can see it here, Introduction to Photoshop, and you can see it's saved in the Photoshop file format, the PSD. So once you double click on it, it instantly loads up to Photoshop. And once the image is here, we can click on the circle that our client says he doesn't want. So it's either we hide it by clicking on this tiny eye icon here, which is the visibility, by clicking on this to hide it, or we can delete it permanently by double clicking on this, on the layer of that circle, and drag it down to this bottom here where we have the waste bin icon. Let me move my hand a bit so you can see the waste bin icon that is at the bottom, at the extreme right. So once I drag it there, you can see once I drag it to that waste bin icon and release my hand, I remove my hand, that layer is instantly deleted. All right. So, and if we hover on that icon, it instantly shows you what it does, which is delete layer. It's used to delete layers. All right. So there's one more thing I want to show you about Photoshop. This icon at the top here, look at this icon. Once you hover on it, the name shows, which is history. Once you click on it, it shows you the history of every change you've made in Photoshop. Now, so far, what we have done is to open this document, hide and show the visibility of that, the layer of the circle, and we now ended up deleting that layer. So every action you take in Photoshop is saved here. So at any point, maybe you feel you made a mistake, you can actually go here and go back to a particular stage where you felt you started making the mistake from. So here, probably maybe the client later changed his mind and said, I don't want that circle to be removed again. Let's leave the circle like that. I can go back here and click. Can go back there and click on the first action I took, which is the layer visibility. Once I click on it, instantly you see that my circle appears back. All right, so this instantly takes me back to where I was before I deleted the circle. All right, and there's another way we can do this as well. Let's delete the layer again. Let's drag it to the waste bin icon. So the layer, the circle is gone. The other way we can do this is to use Ctrl Z, which is hold the control on our Windows laptop and hit the alphabet Z key to undo whatever we have just done. So if you're using an Apple laptop, you can use your Command key and the Z key. So it's Ctrl Z or Command Z. So we do that to undo what we just did. Another way you can actually delete elements in a design without actually deleting from the layer here is by selecting the element, by clicking on it. Like, let's say I want to delete this field in music. Immediately I click on the text, it instantly gets highlighted. All right, I move on my keyboard, I go to my backspace, and once I hit the backspace key, I instantly delete the element. All right. So let me undo that by holding Control and Z, or Command and Z if you're using a MacBook. So that's that for this course. And as an activity for this course, you can upload any image of your choice and try to recreate what I have just done in this course. So any image you upload is fine. Any text you want to write as well is fine. Just basically try to recreate what I've done, an image with a text over it. So see you in the next course. Bye.